When Emily Dickinson wrote, "I am out with lanterns looking for myself," she was merely writing a letter to a friend, describing the chaos of moving house. But for so long, I interpreted her words metaphorically, as a journey of self-discovery or a feeling of being lost in the process of change. I loved that quote, and I thought Emily a kindred spirit, because I, for one, am terribly familiar with the feeling of wandering the moonlit moors of one's own psyche with nothing but the feeble flicker of a lantern's light to illuminate the way. And so, as I float along on the warm breeze of a gentle Indian summer here on the wild southeast coast of Australia, I am drawn to the sea. Tonight is the full harvest moon in the southern hemisphere, and it has me feeling like I'm walking the edge of a vast pool of possibility, unsure where to go next and what will happen if I dare to dive in. You see, I have reached somewhat of a crossroads in my creative life, or rather a multi-lane freeway, as is the nature of a kaleidoscopic, atypical mind like mine. And all at once I am both touched by the Muse, wanting to explore new interests and experiment with ways of incorporating them into this channel, and simultaneously feeling more time poor and overwhelmed than I have ever been. Even though I've returned to work 9 to 5, and I am already struggling to keep making films for this channel, which I love, a ghost of a dream has been haunting my thoughts, a whisper of an idea that has slowly built to a crescendo, and I almost feel powerless to push it from my thoughts. In fact, I am powerless against this relentless urge. I think I have to go for it. I have to find a way. Yes, I'm going to write a book. In my mind and in my scribbled morning notes, a story has been forming. One I hope will move readers with its emotional depth, heart-achingly relatable characters, and breathtaking imagery. Well, that's the plan anyway. And you know, this tale is very much inspired by the ocean itself, which is why I love coming down here. Last night in my dreams, I saw a monstrous wave of indigo blue, crested with pearlescent foam, crashing down right before my feet, dragging everything away with it, leaving me on an empty shore. In a way, I feel like this novel is just like that wave. It will most probably consume me and tear away all else in its wake. It's why I've been so reluctant to start, because I already feel like there's never enough time. And so I'm faced with some really tough choices. What can I bear to let go of to make a little space for this book to be birthed? Can I find a way to manage everything at once? I simply don't know. I am, well, out with lanterns looking for myself. One thing I am sure of is that things need to change. I'm going to have to say goodbye to some things, and others which I can't bear to part with. Like my films, these gifts of light I share on the channel will have to be done differently, softer, simpler. I'm not sure what it will all look like just yet or which way to go, and I suppose in this episode I'm just thinking out loud. But let it be the first in a series of experiments, and for the rest of this little film, I'd simply like to tell you about a book I'm reading. Read 1,000 books and your words will flow like a river, says Virginia Woolf. And so the most logical step for any aspiring author is to start there. I'm not sure I'll make it to 1,000, Virginia, but this year I'm aiming for 100. And of the 25 or so books I've read so far, there are 2 very different stories that have moved and inspired me the most. One with its mind-bending portrayal of monstrousness and grief, which I can't wait to tell you about later, and one with dreamy imagery and tenderly posed existential questions. Both books have lingered in my thoughts long after I folded them closed and set them aside for the night. I believe that books like these 2 come into your life precisely when you need them the most. The words contained within their pages are a gift, an insight into the human condition, penned by a kindred spirit and divinely timed. Sometimes it can feel as though it was written just for you, for this exact moment. And Watermoon was just such a book, a sweetly evocative, cozy fantasy by Samantha Soto-Yambao that surprised me with its emotional depth and poignant reminder of the weight of life's small choices, so uncannily relevant to where I am now. The story of Watermoon begins in a back street in Tokyo. Here lies a pawn shop where Hana and her father Toshio live and work. But not everyone can find it. Most will only see a cozy ramen restaurant. Only those who are truly lost will find it. A doorway to a world where nothing is as it seems. A place to pawn their life choices and deepest regrets. Now, I love a book with lyrical prose and ethereal imagery, but before I read this, I wondered if a cozy fantasy could also set those existential gears in my head to grinding. Could literary fiction and sweet, soft, magical realism collide? And this book answered my question. Yes, indeed, the two can coexist. There are for sure moments of darkness and melancholy too, but they only enhance the beauty. I chose to annotate this book, studying of course, as I prepare to set sail on my own great adventure of writing a novel. I certainly won't be annotating all 100 books I'm attempting to read this year, but from the very first page I knew I'd enjoy doing this for Water Moon. My key was fairly simple, noting things like symbolism and metaphor, emotional moments, recurring themes, beautiful imagery and foreshadowing. There won't be any spoilers here, I promise, but I shall read an abridged version of a scene in the beginning of the book that felt like it was written just for me. Hannah has just picked up a book that was sitting on her desk. It was a dog-eared paperback whose pages clung to its spine by sheer will. She put her mother's glasses on and saw the book for what it really was, a choice that had changed the course of Daisuke's life. Its true form was much prettier than that of a book. It had traded its pages for feathers made of wisps of light, transforming it into a glowing songbird. Once this bird had sung brightly inside Daisuke, while he worked on writing a mystery novel every night for 5 years after his shift as a convenience store clerk. When he had abandoned it and deleted all his unfinished drafts 2 years ago, the bird dimmed, grew silent, and turned as black as coal. It pecked at his gut whenever he thought about the series of fictional Harajuku murders he was never going to solve. But now Daisuke had pawned his choice and he was free. There were going to be times when he would feel a cold emptiness where the choice had once lived, but these would pass. He was not going to remember this choice, or this pawn shop, or the man who had persuaded him to part with a battered mystery novel. Peace of mind, Toshio had told him, was worth the price of never knowing what happened after page 254. I must admit, when I read this, I looked over my shoulder thinking, is the Muse messing with me right now and making these words appear? Because, of course, I couldn't help but think, what would happen if I just let go of this dream? What would it be like if I just said, no, you don't need to write a book, Nancy. You have enough to do. Just make the choice to let it go. But then, as I read on, Hannah and her father are marveling at another choice that was pawned that same day. Why is it so bright? Hannah asked. Choices radiate the light from all the possibilities they contain. Most choices cause a few ripples at best, but this choice, had it not been abandoned, would have sent the strongest and tallest waves surging in every direction. And there I had my answer. If I had any lingering doubts, Kaishin, my favourite character in Water Moon, was struggling to make a choice of his own, describing life as a puzzle that doesn't even seem to have any borders. His friend says, perhaps that is where you will find your place, at the ever-expanding edge. There is only one question that requires an answer. It is all the other questions spinning around it that make it look more complicated than it is. And he presses a coin into Kaishin's palm. On a rooftop, Kaishin crouches by a small moon floating in a puddle and wonders if it longs for the sky. He gets to his feet and looks at the coin in his hand. He tosses logic and the coin into the air and for the first time surrenders one of the most important choices of his life to fate. And I love that. Perhaps I shall toss a coin myself.